the nation of nannies, when the state starts snooping in your purse. Let's get one thing straight. We are living in a nation obsessed with spying on its own people. Cameras on every corner, data scraped from every click, cookies tracking every thought, and now, they want to peek inside your bank account if you're over a certain age, retired, or dependent on the state pension. Congratulations, Britain. We have officially become the first country where growing old is treated as a financial crime. The Department for Work and Pensions, an institution that should be ensuring comfort in your twilight years, is now flirting with becoming a financial surveillance agency. 1 million state pensioners are about to have their banking data rifled through under the excuse of fraud detection. Because obviously what we really need in this country is more suspicion and less dignity. They tell us it's about efficiency. They say, "We're only trying to stop fraud, nothing to fear if you've done nothing wrong." That phrase alone should set every British bone vibrating in revolt, because history shows that nothing to fear always precedes something horrifying. Do you know who else says nothing to fear? The data mining corporations who already own your digital life, the spyware apps that track your every movement, the social media companies that know what you ate, who you fancy, and what you dream about. Now, it's not enough for big tech to have your data. Now big gov wants a slice of your receipts. We've crossed into a new absurdity, financial authoritarianism. The same government that can't stop water companies from dumping sewage into our rivers somehow has unlimited resources to investigate pensioners buying too many tea bags at Tesco. And if you dare ask, "Excuse me, why does the DWP need to know if Ethel bought a birthday card or a new kettle?" You're treated as if you're protecting criminals. Let's be real, fraud detection is noble, but mass surveillance is not the same thing as accountability. There's a difference between protecting a system and policing a population. And, make no mistake, what they're proposing is policing, financial policing of the most vulnerable. You can hear the government line already. This is about ensuring taxpayer money is protected. No. This is about power. If you really cared about taxpayer money, you'd stop paying billions in dodgy private contracts. You'd stop wasting billions on untraceable COVID procurement. You'd stop writing off fraud from corporations while grilling pensioners about whether their heating allowance was spent on gas or groceries. Let's look at the absurd optics of this. A 76-year-old woman gets her pension and pays her bills. Maybe she withdraws 40 cash for her granddaughter's birthday. Maybe she uses it at the charity shop, maybe she forgets. Suddenly, that 40 becomes a flagged transaction. Her bank's algorithms hum, "Unusual activity detected." The government pings a data request, and Ethel, who's lived through war, austerity, and 1,000 government blunders, now gets an investigation letter asking her to clarify recent transactions. Clarify what, exactly? That she bought a cake mix and a train ticket to see her cousin? This is the bureaucratic equivalent of holding your receipts up to the sun to prove you didn't buy plutonium. The insult isn't even subtle anymore. We've gone from protect the elderly to profile the elderly. We're treating pensioners like potential scammers because our own institutions are too lazy or too power-hungry to design humane systems of accountability. Let me tell you what's really happening here. This is about normalization. They start with the pensioners because who's going to defend them loudly enough? Who's going to march for a 75-year-old in Reading whose transactions got audited? Once the idea takes root, it's okay for the government to check accounts for fraud prevention. They expand it. First it's pensioners, then it's benefit claimants, then it's small businesses. Then, before you know it, everyone with a bank account is under routine monitoring. And the worst part, you'll barely notice, because it won't come with a dramatic press release. It'll come as a line of code, hidden in your online banking terms, buried under an update to your privacy settings. The government won't even have to knock. They'll be inside the system already. We used to mock nations that monitored their citizens like this. Now we are one of them. We've built a digital panopticon and sold it to ourselves as safety. Ask yourself, what exactly are they expecting to find in a pensioner's account? Do they think Gladys is running an offshore tax haven from her garden shed? Do they suspect Harold in Bournemouth is money laundering through his co-op savings account? Do they think 70-year-olds are coordinating organised fraud rings through Waitrose loyalty points? This isn't security, it's theatre. They want to look tough on fraud while being soft on the actual fraudsters, because the real con artists wear suits and have contracts with the government. The real financial abuse is written into law, not hidden in the decimal points of a pension statement. And here's the sick irony. They're doing this in a time of record corporate fraud, record tax avoidance, and record political corruption. MPs flipping houses on the taxpayer's dime. That's not flagged, contracts handed to mates, due diligence complete, energy companies gouging the elderly for heating bills, market forces. But a pensioner spends her winter fuel allowance on helping her grandkids instead of turning on the heating. Suspicious behaviour. What kind of dystopia are we living in when kindness is questioned but greed gets knighthood? They call it data sharing. Let's call it what it is, financial voyeurism. Banks will share your data not because they care about justice, but because they fear non-compliance. The government will analyse it not because they care about you, but because information is power, and power once tasted is never surrendered. We are teaching a generation to live like suspects. Every transaction logged, every pattern analysed, every deviation questioned. You used to need a warrant to search someone's private life. Now it's buried in a user agreement you never read. And for those who say, well, I've got nothing to hide, congratulations, you've already surrendered. That's not moral purity, that's digital naivety. Privacy isn't about hiding guilt, it's about protecting dignity. Your right to privacy isn't a shield for wrongdoing, it's armour for autonomy. You don't defend privacy because you're hiding something, you defend it because without it you stop being a person and become a profile. Think about how invasive this gets. If they can access your spending, they can infer your health, your habits, your relationships. They can tell what medication you buy, which shops you frequent, what donations you make, who you support. They can tell when you go out, when you're home, and whether you're struggling. In the wrong hands, that data becomes a psychological blueprint. It tells more about you than your GP ever could. And all it takes is one data breach, one hack, one leak. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that the British government cannot secure a PDF, let alone the nation's finances. We've had sensitive data left on trains, USB drives lost in taxis, NHS patient records exposed online, and yet they want to mine millions of private bank transactions. It's not even sinister at this point, it's stupid. The problem is not technology, it's trust. We don't trust the people in charge because they've proven time and again that power is their true addiction. Every scandal, every overreach, every pilot program that quietly becomes permanent. It's a slow march toward a surveillance state, and they're counting on fatigue. They're betting that by the time you notice, it'll be too late to object. Let's pause and ask the only question that matters. Where does this end? If pensioners' accounts can be scanned for fraud patterns, what stops them scanning everyone's? If the state can justify this for welfare, can they justify it for taxation? Can they justify it for national security, for public safety, for climate accountability? Every slippery slope starts with a temporary measure, and every temporary measure becomes a permanent scar. There's a moral absurdity at the heart of this. The same politicians who bang on about British freedom and small government are the ones building the biggest surveillance bureaucracy this country has ever seen. They wave the Union Jack while dismantling the very privacy that flag once symbolised. They lecture the world on democracy while teaching their own citizens to self-censor. The worst part? They've made it bureaucratic, which means it'll never end. It'll outlast this government, the next, and the one after. Because once a data system is built, no politician will ever dismantle it. They'll all say, we can't remove it, it's for safety. And safety in political hands is just a synonym for obedience. We're walking into a future where algorithms will decide who deserves scrutiny. Maybe your account gets flagged because your spending pattern looks unusual. Maybe you take out cash every Friday for the market. Maybe you shop online for your grandkids. Maybe that algorithm doesn't know the difference between criminal behavior and living your life. And once a machine decides you're suspicious, good luck clearing your name with a call center. There's no appeal process for digital suspicion. You can't reason with an algorithm. It doesn't care that you've never committed fraud. It doesn't care that you're 76, that you've worked 40 years, that your only crime is trusting a system that stopped trusting you. This is how liberty dies in modern nations, not with a bang, but with a bank ping. And the banks, oh, they're loving this because it turns them into government deputies. They're no longer just managing your money, they're managing your morality. They'll decide what looks suspicious, they'll decide when to freeze your account. You'll get a politely worded email. For your security, we've temporarily limited access to your account. For your security, always for your security, never for their control. We already live in a country where banks close accounts for reputational risk, where dissenters are quietly debanked, where algorithms assess creditworthiness based on where you shop and what you post. Add the DWP to that mix, and you've got a surveillance apparatus that doesn't need handcuffs, it just turns off your debit card. You think you're free because you can still tap your card? Wait until they decide tapping is a privilege, not a right. The irony is that this level of intrusion won't even catch the real fraudsters. Those people know how to move money. They know how to exploit shell companies and crypto and digital laundering. You know who won't outsmart the system? The pensioner with a post office account, the carer who misentered a figure, the widow who forgot to declare her £12 savings interest. This isn't fraud prevention, it's punishment for existing without wealth. Let's call it what it is, class surveillance. They don't monitor the rich, they monitor the reachable. Because it's easier to criminalize poverty than to regulate power. And so Britain tightens another loop in its digital noose. And the citizens, weary from decades of austerity and scandal, shrug. We laugh it off, we meme it, we joke. Oh well, they already know everything anyway. That's how authoritarian creep wins, not with resistance, but with resignation. The most patriotic act left is outrage. To say, no, this is not normal. To say, I will not live like a suspect in my own country. To say, you may own my data, but you will not own my dignity. Because if they can do this to the elderly, the least mobile, least threatening, most law-abiding part of society, what chance do the rest of us have? When your government spies on grandmothers, you're not in a democracy anymore. You're in a digital panopticon with a Union Jack logo. They'll tell you it's about safety. It's not. It's about control, and control always starts with the powerless. First it's pensioners, then it's benefits claimants, then it's everyone. One day you'll wake up and realize the surveillance net was never about fraud. It was about obedience. So here's my message to the government and their banker accomplices. If you truly want to stop fraud, start with yourselves. Audit your donors, your contracts, your expenses, your offshore accounts. We'll be happy to show you what real suspicious activity looks like. Until then, get out of our wallets, out of our accounts, and out of our lives. The people of this country have paid their taxes, earned their pensions, and kept this broken system standing long enough. The least you could do is let them keep what little privacy they have left. Because what you're doing now is not fraud prevention, it's financial colonization. And the British people didn't fight off empires just to be colonized by their own politicians, not right, not left, just real.